You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the podcast. I have on an awesome guest today, Ashley Scott Meyer from Selling Your Screenplay. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, before we get into this, of course, every screenwriter wants to be able to sell their screenplay, but I want to get your origin story. So if you could kind of tell me, what birthed sellingyourscreenplay.com?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you want the 1 minute version or the 10-minute version?
Give me the version.
Okay, so I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. I think I'm like a lot of people. I love movies. I can see all your Star Wars paraphernalia in the background. I love Star Wars. I grew up, in the 80s watching these Star Wars movies, loving these Star Wars movies. And so that was definitely an influence, just being so overwhelmed with Star Wars toys and loving those movies. That was, I'd say, sort of the real genesis of my love of movies, frankly, was Star Wars. But about in high school, I just started to think that this would be a cool thing, screenwriting. I was, again, in Annapolis, Maryland. I didn't know anybody that was in the arts, much less filmmaking. So I just had no way of doing it. I went to college. I decided to be an accounting major because really for just lack of any idea of what I wanted to do. And one of my classes was in the library. And I just stumbled into this book called Writer's Market. It was Writer's Digest, Writer's Market. And they had a small section. Again, this was back in the mid 90s. They had a small section that was just for screenwriters. And so I sent out some of those letters, but I wrote like 10, 15 pages of a script and then sent out some query letters to these people in the writer's market. And for me, the big moment was feeling like I always wanted to write, but I never had the motivation to do it because I had no idea what to do with it once I was done with it. So they're kind of it didn't. But once I sort of felt like, okay, if I write something decent, there are some people out there I can send it to. That was what sort of motivated me. So I sent out a bunch of these things in this Writer's Digest. 2 people actually responded back then. It was, back then you would get the, you would put a little self-addressed stamped postcard in the envelope. And then you would say, use the SASE to tell me if you want to read my script. So the first postcard comes back and it said, thank you for that undated, untitled manuscript. No, thanks. So I knew I was a little off base. The next guy, he actually called me and I owe him a debt of gratitude. I've tried to look him up and thank him. I don't even remember his name now, but at one point I did try and look him up. Anyways, he called me. He said, listen, don't send out any more of these pages. You're just a rank amateur. You need to start to learn how to format. You need to understand sort of the basics of screenwriting. And so he gave me this great advice, which I give to other people. If you're just starting out, you're like me, you don't know anybody in the film industry. He told me to go and get Sid Field's Screenplay, the book. And again, this was in the mid 90s. And I felt like that was actually a real good primer for me. Because I didn't know anybody that was into films in sort of a, technical way. And so this was sort of a great introductory. It kind of just blew my mind. Oh, wow, there's these act breaks and, this sort of midpoint and stuff. And so, but it's just something that, again, I just kind of never quite crystallized in my own mind. So it kind of just got me going. Sid Field's Screenplay is, it has a section on formatting. It has sort of the basics of dialogue and character. So it was a good primer to get me going. And then I graduated college. Again, I was an accounting major, didn't want to be an accountant. So me and my buddy just threw everything in a pickup truck and moved out to LA. And slowly but surely, I started pushing my scripts out there, sold a few, and eventually started selling your screenplay probably 10 years ago.
Wow. That's a heck of a journey. So with selling your screenplay, you've got people coming on there. Are they listing scripts? Are there gigs? Are producers out there asking for specific scripts that they want?
So we've got a plethora of ways, and I've been trying to just figure out, okay, what's the best way I can help the screenwriting community? We offer leads. So when we get like leads, those are very typically incoming producers, or producers looking, and it's usually something highly specific. Like they have an actor that they're working with. So it's like, we have a 35-year-old, female, and very specific. And so you need a script for that. Or maybe there's this particular story, a historical figure. We need a script for this historical figure. We've got funding for this. Or maybe we need a script. We've got this location. We need a script that takes place in this very specific location.
Very specific.
A cabin in the woods. If you've got, a script about a cabin in the woods, we have the cabin in the woods, send it that way. So those are the types of leads that we get, very specific. We also run a contest, and that's geared towards low budget screenplays. Last year was our first year, and last year's winner was a script that was called Friend Request. We ended up finding a producer for it who took it to Mar Vista, and got the thing produced. It's actually premiering on Lifetime. I think August 21st. Wonderful. So it was really incredible. Like literally it was about 10 months ago where these guys got hooked. Maybe it was a year ago. So it was maybe last August. So these guys got hooked up. It was a fellow named Ted Campbell who directed the project, and Richard Pierce was the writer, and I just hooked him up. Ted was one of our industry judges. He liked the script. He took it to his contacts, and just a whirlwind. They got this thing completely produced and now through post-production, all less than a year later. Yeah. And as I said, it's literally premiering on Lifetime, the August 21st.
Wow. That's incredible. That's a really fast turnaround for filmmaking.
Very fast. And I preface all of this by I'm not going to be able to do that with every winning script that comes through the contest. There's going to be some that maybe get optioned, maybe they don't get optioned, but there's going to be some. I've had scripts that I've sold and they were optioned for like 10 years. So it can take many years to get a project actually through post-production.
What's the name of the contest?
It's just SYS, a six-figure screenplay contest. And it's specifically geared for projects that could be produced for six figures or less. So it's not the $1 million is basically the budget level. If your project is kind of a big budgeted project, it's probably not a good fit for this contest.
Well, I mean, that tells you how important it is to keep budget in mind as a screenwriter, because you know how many screenwriters go out there and they write the script of their dreams, but then they don't think about, is this even feasible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So with the selling your screenplay, how much success have you found with other writers? I mean, it looks like you found some success with the festival, but in general.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success, and there's a whole list of success pages. People have, optioned stuff, sold stuff, had stuff produced. I should be probably a little bit better. Inktip is real good about listing that stuff on IMDb. I should probably be better about that. But again, you can go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. There's got to be 20, 30 success stories on there now.
That's wonderful. Are you doing mostly stuff in the US? You doing anything international right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what are the successes. Canada. I think there have been some Indian producers coming from India, Bollywood type stuff. We've had some requests for that on the leads. I don't know if we've ever facilitated any of those, but there's definitely is an international flair to some of the stuff, but predominantly English speaking. So I'd say if you're in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, those are the countries that just because my contacts with producers are typically English speaking producers.
Of course, yeah. So with sellyourscreenplay.com, what do you think is what kind of script has kind of the best chance on there? You said low budget, but is there a specific genre? Is there a specific type of setting or location?
I wouldn't necessarily say genre. I mean, I think there's sort of this conventional wisdom that comedies and dramas don't play overseas. So when you're doing an indie film, don't get here. But when I talk to the producers, I've got a list. Again, you can go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. I think at this point, I've got almost 50 industry judges. And I ask them up front, what genres do you want to read scripts for? We do get we get a lot of dramas and comedies in the contest.
Okay.
And I would say, and I would say we get probably 2/3 or 3/4 dramas and comedies. And I would say there is a certain reversal. The 2/3 or 3/4 of the producers are looking for horrors or thrillers or action, low budget horror, thrillers, actions. So I do think there's a little bit of an imbalance there where people could maybe think a little bit more about the markets and who they're actually selling it to. But I think the main thing, I mean, we've all heard this a million times, write a great script. I definitely think that that's a big piece of this. I mean, this script, as an example that I mentioned, Friend Request, the script that won last year and got produced. I mean, it was apparent. The way the contest works is I get 2, sometimes 3 reads on a script when it comes in. I pay those first round readers. They read the script. And I can tell you that script got high marks pretty much from everybody, from top to bottom, from my first round readers all the way up. And I gave it out probably 2, 3, or 4 industry judges, and they all liked it. So I do think that the script, unfortunately does matter. Having a script that people can read and connect with is actually very important. But I also do think that if you go, and I actually interviewed Richard after he sold the script. I don't remember what number it is, but you can find that on Selling Your Screenplay too. I interviewed Richard, and it was amazing to hear how deftly he had constructed this script to be a lifetime thriller. He watches those with his wife. He really enjoys them, not in a campy, I look down on these films. Right. He really enjoys these films. And so he understood the tropes. He understood the cliches. He understood how those films actually function. And so it was perfectly suited. So yeah, he wrote a thriller. He followed the things, but again, really understanding how these films work. Is really can help. And he truly did understand it, because he wrote this thing. It went to this guy, Ted Campbell, who had directed, a dozen of these Lifetime movies. Awesome. And he immediately recognized it. He sent it to Mar Vista. They immediately recognized it as something that would fit into this same Lifetime template. And they bought it and they produced it. So again, it's just a matter of which way you want to lean. I mean, I think having passion for something, but Richard really had a passion for these movies. He really enjoyed watching them and exactly. And so I do think that there's, it's got to be everything. You got to write a good script. You got to think of the markets, and you got to have passion for it. I mean, you're not going to, I don't think you can really write something good if you kind of look down on it, or you kind of don't really appreciate it. Richard really appreciates those Lifetime movies, and they are campy and cheesy, but there's a fun in them and you can appreciate them in a non-condescending way. And that's what Richard did. And he wrote a great script that ultimately, he got the fruits of that.
I think that what you're saying is the passion really can be the secret sauce, right? It can really add to that lightning in the bottle moment. If you love what you're doing, it's going to show in your writing. If you're just doing a gig for the money, there is that possibility that a script might be okay. It can be an entirely passable script, but it might not be that script that really sings. I know when I come onto a gig, and I'm sure you're probably like this too, I always try and find something I can really identify with that script, whether it's thematic, whether it's the character or whatnot, so that I can really bring a piece of myself to the work. And it sounds that's exactly what he did, and it's paid off for him. That's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you have coming down the pipe for Selling Your Screenplay? Because you strike me as the type of guy like myself who is constantly trying to really help other people, help other writers, open doors for them. So I'm guessing you're probably a busybody. What do you have kind of developing on the site right now?
Yeah, so I actually wrote, directed, and produced a film in December 2019, and we're actually going through the festival route. We just got a sales agent and stuff, and I have been colossally disappointed with the festivals. I understand there's COVID and this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But even the festivals we've been accepted to have been a complete disappointment. A lot of times we've gotten accepted and never hear anything from them. We send them our screener. We don't even know if we're going to screen. So that's going to be, I think, next year. Hopefully COVID will kind of take care of itself. Fingers crossed. But I think next year I'm going to try and run a big event. I've always thought, I've always thought that LA could have a screenwriting event. Obviously it'll take a few years to get it up, but the first piece of that is going to be a film festival. It's going to be, I'll somehow tie in my contest, the winners for the contest. So hopefully by this time next year, I'll have a much more sort of firm grip on that, about what I'm doing. Cause I'd say it's probably at least a year out, or even 14 months.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think screenwriters really need to be given that moment. I run a screenplay competition called Script Summit, and we're actually hosting the event in next month, where we will be doing seminars and all kinds of like workshops, and it's a lot of fun. And I don't think screenwriters get to really enjoy that type of dedication to the craft, because a lot of times screenwriters can kind of be brushed to the side in a film festival. So the fact that you see that actually really gives me hope.
Yeah. And I mean, Austin, does a great job. It's a film festival, but it's really writer centric.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, who knows if it's going to fly, but at least we'll try and get that up next year, start a festival. And I'll circle back. It's interesting. I'll be circling back. I'd love to hear your thoughts on running your event, because I'm sure there's a million things that I still need to learn about it.
It's managed chaos.
Yeah.
it's the best way I can explain it. You plan, and then the day comes and you go like, okay, I got to put fires out. It's kind of like being a director on a set, I have to assume, because it's like, how do I keep this going? So that's really cool. So sellingyourscreenplay.com, you have a lot of different avenues. You can post your script on there, right?
Correct. That's another piece. So we have a monthly membership, and that's where you get these leads. And the other piece to that is we do have a database of scripts. So once you pay your monthly fee, then you can get these leads, but you can also post all your scripts in the database. And we have producers coming. It's a lot of it's producers that are very similar to my industry judges. And so I would encourage people to take a look, but we have producers in there every day, just trying to find projects and get stuff going, just like the rest of us. So,
awesome.
It's all just, again, a part of that monthly membership.
And do you recommend people really kind of polish their log line, polish their synopsis, so that they're giving themselves the best possible?
You say that, and I've got some scripts now that, as I said, with the contest, we're now with the contest just closed on July 31st. So now we're reviewing all the scripts, and I've got some scripts that are getting high marks, but they have terrible log lines. The writers submit the log lines, and now I have to go out and pitch these to our industry judges. I'm saying, hey, this script really did get high marks from my industry readers, but it's got this kind of weak log line, and the producers are like, it's not for me. So the log line really is a piece that will be used to market your script. And I do think writers should really understand that. And but most people are not going to read your script without reading the log line first. So take some care on that. And even if it's your friend, it's going to still taint. If you have, like, I can read some of these log lines and I'm like, it just doesn't feel really well thought out. And that's a real shame. I mean, it's going to taint the reading experience. You're going to read that log line, think this isn't really that well thought out. And that's going to taint your experience reading the script. If it's not,
I agree. I mean, a log line is really its own discipline. You have to learn how to write a log line, but a log line is also an introduction to who you are as a writer. You can have a killer script, but if you have a crappy log line, they read it, they're going to think the script's going to suck. So you're already shooting yourself in the foot. I know with Script Summit, we have talent managers that come in and they will pick 2 of our winners to rep with a contract, which is pretty amazing that we're able to offer that. But sometimes some of the scripts that we have that we send to the talent managers, we ask the judges to rewrite the log lines because the log lines are need help. And so we will actually bring in the judges. Judges will rewrite the log lines and we'll send those out to really just try and help the writers, even though they have a script that scores like, 9.5s or whatever. So it really is. It's its own discipline, and you need to really kind of develop that skill, just like you have to develop writing a synopsis or a treatment. On your site, do you guys use synopsis treatments or like film posters or anything like that?
I mean, we definitely, again, part of the monthly membership, we just have a forum set up. And I've got my resident logline expert is a guy named Steve Cleary, and he'll come in and review. Again, if you're part of the monthly membership, you can go into this forum, post a logline, and Steve will workshop the loglines with you.
Awesome.
I don't spend a lot of time on synopses. Mainly when I first started, what I found with synopsis is that when I pitch a script to a producer, I would say 9 times out of 10, 10, if they'll read it based on the log line, I would say 1 time out of 10, they'll say, well, do you have a synopsis?
Right.
And so I think it's handy to have that synopsis, but it's quite a bit of work. We sort of phase that out on selling a screenplay because it's just, people can have a 5-page synopsis. It could take us, years and weeks to try and edit that.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, so it is an important part. I definitely advise people to have a 1-page. Inktipp, I think theirs is 450 words is their synopsis. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I gear mine towards. Basically like 1 typewritten single-spaced page gives people kind of a quick overview, much more thorough than a log line. So that's what I recommend. And again, I think you will, if you're submitting your script a lot, you will get people wanting to see it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really glad to see that you've got this out there and you're providing opportunity for writers, and then you have documented successes, which is fantastic. Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you yet?
No, I think we've covered actually quite a bit. You've gotten all my links. Definitely check out my film. As I said, I mentioned I wrote, directed, and produced a film. We're still in the festivals and sales, but definitely keep an eye out for that. It'll probably come out hopefully early next year. It's called The Rideshare. It's called The Rideshare Killer. It has Tuesday Night from one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and we have Eric Roberts. Those are our names in the film. So nice little horror film. We sort of modeled it after those Giallo films from the late 60s, early 70s, kind of a thriller, a murder or thriller mystery.
No, well, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's sellingyourscreenplay.com, and really appreciate you being on the show, Ashley.
Jeffrey, I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.